I am so excited today because I finally have bookshelves. Hi everyone, my name is Claudia and welcome back to Project Notes. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for being here. And if you're new, this is where I post monthly to share the different knitting projects I'm working on. I also do a little bit of sewing, but today I have something really special to share. If you've been watching the podcast, you know how much I love sharing books. And today I am going to share some of my favorite knitting resource and pattern books, just to do a dedicated video to just share the information and put it out there. One of the big things I like about Project Notes is the community that's grown up around it. So if you have any favorite books, resources around knitting or sewing that you want to share, please put those in the comments below. That way other people can learn about it. And also so I can learn too, just in case, if there's something I might want to add to my library shelves. I always like to start off the podcast by sharing what I am wearing. This is the Nyezi pullover designed by Noma Nadolvu. You can find her on Instagram, you can find her on Ravelry, and she also has a website with her pattern designs. I'll put that somewhere in the description box down below. I won't go too much into detail about the pattern because I shared it in my last podcast, but this was a test knit I did volunteer for. The requirement was that you make the top section and one arm. The deadline also worked, so I decided to volunteer for it. This is knit with Plymouth Sea Isle cotton, which is a worsted weight yarn. It is, I think, a 3-ply. It's 50% wool, 50% cotton. I'll also put some details of the yarn on the screen. But this is now one of my favorite worsted weight yarns. It's very light and easy to wear. And after I washed and blocked it, it just softened up so much more. I'm really enjoying wearing this. I did have a couple issues, not with the pattern. The pattern was great, but because the test knit only required me to do the top part and an arm, I decided to change things up for the rest of the pattern just so I could get more wear out of it for the rest of the year. In the original pattern, the neckline, it goes much higher. That is something that I probably wouldn't be able to wear consistently throughout the year. So I decided to bring the neckline down quite a bit and not to fold it and sew it down. I do need to make some adjustments to it because you can see there's some gaping here along the collar, which should be easy enough to fix. Also, I have this really bad problem of making my arms too long. I call it the pool noodle effect. So in the pattern, it recommends that when you divide or when you put the back and the front together and knit those together, that you stop and you actually block the sweater. I did not do that because I figured, it's just a very quick test knit, just do the top, do the sleeve. But the reason that it's recommended that knitters do that is because this portion of the top does grow quite a bit after washing and blocking. And so I ended up once again, like with my past finished objects with pool noodle arms. It went all the way to my fingertips, so I did have to rip out the sleeves, probably about 4 inches. And when I did that, I made the decision to make the cuffs much shorter than I originally planned. So I only have 10 rows of 1x1 rib here. Overall, I can't recommend this pattern enough. It is a drop shoulder pattern with some really interesting raglan increases in the back. You shape the back first and then you knit the front and then you join in the round. And what I still love about that is it doesn't break up the pattern in the front. It's just one cohesive look all the way up through the shoulders, and then you get the raglan increases in the back. I'll put in some mod shots so you can see that. Overall, I love this sweater. I'm going to be wearing it until it gets too hot here in Southern Nevada, but it is one that I definitely recommend. So why am I so excited to have bookshelves? Well, when we moved to our current home, we decided to declutter quite a bit. We didn't want to bring a ton of stuff with us, especially moving a whole house. So one of the things that we decided to move on and donate were several of our bookshelves from the prior place that we lived. The idea was that we can donate these, give them, to charity, to a good cause, and then that would free up some space and creativity for us to get some custom shelves or or shop for something a little bit different. Well, we've been living where we are for about 2 to 3 years, and during that entire time, we just never bought the bookshelves. I don't know why we never did, other than we just kind of put it on. We kept pushing it further and further back down the list of things we wanted to do, especially when we moved into a new to us house. So for Christmas, I decided to splurge and spoil myself, and I bought 3 turquoise bookshelves. I found these online just from, a retailer you can find, and it's been fantastic having them. If you are a regular viewer of this podcast, you'll know that I love sharing books here on this channel, and to finally have one place for all of the books in the house is fantastic. That's not completely honest. There's still going to be books everywhere, in every single corner, on every single couch, next to every single bed. But we're very much book people in my family, and it's just nice to have something where we can put the things that we love. Also, when I moved out of my parents' house many, many years ago, I didn't take too much with me. I kind of was very bare bones. These are the essentials. These are the things I need. So I left a lot of books with my parents. And now that I have a really great bookshelf setup in a space that can accommodate it, I can finally bring the books from my parents' house that I left there to here. And I know my parents will be really happy about that, because it's finally going to free up some space in their house. Shame on me for not taking them sooner, but we moved, my husband and I moved 1 or 2 times, and it was just easier to leave it with my folks where they could just stay in one stable space rather than taking them from place to place. But now that we're settled here, I'm excited to just start bringing them in. I love books. Most of the books I've had for years, some from high school, some through college. I know there are people out there who ruthlessly declutter their books, but I have so many memories attached to the things I read, and I read multiple times. Since I have my bookshelves now, I was able to pull a ton of my knitting resource and pattern books out of storage. This is really exciting for me because they've just been in a box, inaccessible to me, just among some other things as we were trying to declutter and excavating. It was an excavation, really, excavating some of my old favorite fiction, nonfiction books, along with my knitting books, was so satisfying. And this is just one shelf of what I have. So I decided to do a whole video dedicated to my favorite knitting resource books and pattern books that I personally own. I supplement a lot of my knitting resources with checkouts from the local library, from the internet and all that, but this is just what I have in my collection. And if you see any gaps, let me know, because I'm always looking for something that I can use. Some of these I didn't have in storage, so I use regularly, but some of these were, and I'm excited to finally have them out again. So sit down, grab a cup of tea, grab your knitting, and let's talk books. The first book I'm going to share is no stranger on this channel. It is the Vogue Knitting, the Ultimate Knitting Book. The thing I love about this book is, as it says in the title, it is an ultimate resource book. So it goes over things like basic knit and purl stitches. It'll talk about shaping, right increases, left increases, but it'll also go in depth into things like pattern design, and it lightly touches on yarns, yarn choices, yarn substitution. This is a really great resource book, especially if you just want to look up a really quick tip or a really quick fact. So some of the chapters will cover things like the basic techniques of cables, lace, colorwork knitting, advanced knitting techniques, and of course, understanding knitting instructions. If you're new to knitting, if you're not so familiar with it, learning how to read a knitting pattern is its own fun adventure. And if you are interested in a book on just basic knitting techniques that gets you to more of an intermediate level, I do recommend this one. I should say this now too. I've collected these books over the last several years. I always recommend that before you buy any knitting book, craft book, you see if it's available at your local public library. That way you can make a decision if it's going to be something that you're regularly going to use, especially considering the cost of items can accumulate. The next book from my library, my personal library that I recommend, is The Knitter's Book of Yarn, The Ultimate Guide to Choosing and Using and Enjoying Yarn by Clara Parks. Clara Parks is a wealth of information and knowledge in the knitting community, a really intentional designer with a great set of books and an online presence too that you can find. I'll put some resources down below. But what was helpful about this book for me, especially as I was learning to knit and developing, was understanding what is yarn. So when I first started to knit or got back into knitting, I learned to knit from my mom. She taught me the basic knit and purl stitch when I was in high school. But when I returned to it in my mid to late 20s, I stuck with what was in the craft store because it was approachable and understandable to me. I learned primarily from YouTube how to knit after that, but I didn't understand yarn substitution or that it was something I would need to do. For example, I knit a colorwork Shetland sweater in 100% superwash wool. That was not a good idea. As you can imagine, the product did not turn out well. After that, I really started to investigate different types of fibers, different types of yarns, and the different types of fabrics that it created. And this was really helpful in navigating me through that process. This book is divided primarily into 3 sections, and the 3 sections are fiber foundations, basically going through protein-based fibers, animal-based fibers, basically, cellulosic fibers, and synthetic fibers. It also talks about evaluating yarn and the different plies and why you would use certain yarns over other yarns, and information about why you would use something over another.
Hi everyone, Editing Claudia here. When I was looking back at the video, I realized that I was unclear about the different sections in this book. There are 4 primary sections in the book. Section 1 is all about fiber foundations. This is an exploration of different fibers, animal, plant, blends, and synthetics. Section 2, Making Yarn, is all about how yarn is made. And Section 3, Ply Me River, is a discussion about yarn plies. The 4th and final section is called Putting It All Together. It has an array of really cute patterns and discusses how you can apply all of the knowledge. Once again, I highly recommend this book and check it out.
I am not a spinner. I don't spin yarn, but I do think it's important to understand the way that yarn is constructed, especially when choosing yarn for a project. And that's why I went ahead and bought the book Yarnitecture by Jillian Moreno. This is a knitter's guide to spinning, building exactly the yarn you want. If you are a spinner, I do recommend this book to you. It's probably not new to you at all if you spin yarn, but I recommend this to knitters because it really talks about the structure of yarn. I didn't understand the difference between a 1-ply, a 2-ply, 3-ply, 4-ply until this book, and why you would use maybe a 1-ply yarn over a 4-ply yarn. The chapters in this book discuss why you spin, the different breeds you can spin from, how to prepare fiber, how to draft fiber, plying, color, finishing, and using in patterns. If you have been gifted hand spun or if you've made it on your own. There's some really interesting patterns in here that you can take a look at. But if you are like me and are a knitter who's just interested more in how yarn is spun and made, I recommend this. And if you are a spinner, this is probably on your shelf, something you already know about. So give Yarnitecture a try. Those were my resource books. Now let's talk about some of my favorite pattern books. The patterns in this book are very aspirational for me. I think and I believe I can knit these, but the time and dedication to actually complete these, that is the thing that I need to work on, because all of the knitted pieces in this book are beautiful, but they will take time for me to complete. And one day I'll choose a pattern from this and knit it up. For right now, it's just something that I enjoy pulling off my shelf and flipping through. And that is Alice Starmore's Tudor Roses. I believe this is the updated edition of it. There was one that came out, I want to say in the 1990s, but this is the updated version. And I always see people complete these online, and every time I'm just blown away. It takes a lot of time, patience, and skill to make some of these. Like, look at this. Let me speak a little bit more about the book, Tudor Roses by Alice Starmore. These are garments inspired by different women from the Tudor ages. The patterns are named after, Elizabeth of York, Mary Tudor, Lady Mary, Anne Boleyn, women like that. And there's a short story about them or an excerpt about them. Like this is the one inspired by Margaret Tudor. And you can see the excerpt here. It's just a really interesting book. And I will one day make something from this, but right now it is more aspirational. Maybe one day it'll be my piece de resistance, one of the patterns from this book. There have been many shifts in my shelf because this very cute bookend is not holding the weight of these. So excuse me while I fix that. The next book I'm going to share has my magnum opus project, and I am stealing that from the Young Folks Knit podcast. I saw her video where she shared special sweaters that she wanted to make that would maybe take a little bit more time and energy. And this book has my magnum opus. I thought she summarized it so well. But this is Shetland by Marie Wallen. My magnum opus project, the project that I will make one day, but it's going to take me some time, and I really want to just savor every moment of it. I'm not quite there yet. I haven't made the space in my, making or creative time, but I'm going to get there. But my magnum opus project from this book is the Yell. This is an all over colorwork sweater that is steeked in multiple places. I have watched so many different YouTube videos, followed so many people online who've made this, and I've just been taking notes over the years about this particular item until I actually make the time to make it. But going back to specifically this book, it's just such an inspiring set of patterns. The landscapes, the photographs, everything shared in this is just so gorgeous. In the back of the book, it does share, some basic steeking techniques, tips, and tricks. There are videos online, or also visiting your local yarn shop and seeing if they have classes on steeking. That way you can get practice maybe on a smaller item. That's what I think I would do before I actually tackled this. I would probably take a swatch of it and then stake that to see if it actually holds up and I'm able to properly reinforce it. But the patterns in here are just absolutely gorgeous. Marie Wallen has a shop online that you can buy kits from. Sometimes the kits are released. Also, you can, in the States, you can get kits when they're released from the Woolly Thistle. I think they're based somewhere in Vermont or New Hampshire, but I always check their website to see if the kits are available. I'll pull the trigger one of these days and actually make it, but I just like pulling it down and just kind of experiencing a setting that is completely different from my own. I live in a desert, and this is a small island off the coast of Scotland, and just thinking about wrapping myself in a warm Shetland sweater, walking down windswept beaches. Like she captured it. She captured that aesthetic, that feeling in this book, and I do recommend it. I mentioned earlier that I did a bit of an excavation in my garage to get some books out, and I actually forgot that I had this one. This is the Shetland Trader by Gudrun Johnston. I think she released this, or Pom Pom was the publisher of this. Pom Pom or Laine? Pom Pom. Pom Pom was the publisher for this. I bought this when it came out. I think it came out maybe the year that I actually moved. So I got it, put it in storage because I knew I wanted to move house with it. And that kind of just sat there until I found it recently. And this is just a beautiful book with great designs in it. The design that I eventually want to make is I think it's pronounced the jarta. This is a dress. I could shorten it and make it into a top, but I love the wavy color work, the puff sleeves on it. It's so cute, and I maybe I'll make a mini dress out of it. I don't know. It's so cute. But there's so many great patterns in here that I've seen knit up in so many different styles. The Maywick, oh my gosh, if you have a ton of scrap yarn that you want to play with, give the Maywick a shot, just because of all of the different color combinations you could do with this. Also, another good one is along the whole dress, mini dress, maybe longer top lines, is the Elsk. Also extremely beautiful. A lot of different options come in this book. Everything here looks like every pom-pom pattern I've knit is pretty approachable, understandable. You just have to have a little bit of a sense of adventure and a sense of play with color, maybe playing with bright colors, neutral colors, however you express yourself in the things you wear. But the Shetland Trader, this is one of my favorite books to pull down and take a look at from now and then, since it's come out of storage. If you're interested in making children's sweaters, I recommend Little Man Knits, 22 grandpa-inspired designs for the little man in your life by Alex Capshaw Taylor. The patterns in this book are so adorable. I've made it for my little person, and he just looks so good in them. It's called Little Man Knits. Of course, you can make it for little girls too. You know, boys shouldn't have all of the fun, but they make little boys just look like little sophisticated grandpas. I'm going to put some pictures on the screen. I've made about one or two things from this book. And if you have a little person, a child in your life, and you want to make them something cute and unique, I do recommend this book. The instructions are very clear. And you can do some cabling, you can do some lace work, basic stockinette, basic purl. I also like the patterns in this book, and one of the reasons I like this book too is I don't tend to seam a lot of adult items for myself or other adults that I knit for. But when it comes to children, I do like seaming sweaters or seam sweaters because I think it adds some more structure to the design. So if you're like me and initially were intimidated by sewing or seaming a sweater together, I recommend a children's pattern because it's small and you can practice on a smaller item before maybe graduating to a larger item like for an adult, like setting sleeves, sewing the backs to the fronts. Give those a try. But this is just a cute, adorable book. I have so many more books I can share, but I'm going to wrap up the ones that I currently own with this one. And this is actually a magazine. It is Laine Summer 2021. And you have probably seen patterns from this book before, especially this one. I feel like everyone has made a version of this. I know I have, and I would love to make another one. But this was the magazine that published the Lento. And the Lento is a fantastic knit. I have one that I knit in blue. I held the yarn double. I think it was a Juniper Moon yarn. But this is a beautiful raglan pattern, and you can really play with the fiber, the yarn you use, the fabric you create with this one. It's just gorgeous. Another pattern in this book that I really want to tackle one day is visiting, but the visiting cardigan. It's just so stunning. Just a really nice textured cardigan, almost a waffle pattern, kind of like the waffle pattern I have in my sweater, but I just think it's so pretty. I think I would do mine in a brighter color, probably a really bright red, but something along the lines of more earthy tones would also be very beautiful as well. That's all that I have to share today. I hope you all had fun going through books with me. I'm a book person. I always try to include books in the podcast. So getting these shelves and starting to get it set up has just been a real treat for me. It's not... My shelves, though, the setup is not Instagrammable yet. It's not worthy of a shelfie, but I'm going to be getting my older books back from my parents' house. I'm going to be jazzing this area up quite a bit with different bookends, different little tchotchkes, and all of the books that I've enjoyed and loved over the years. And this is one of my favorite sections, my knitting pattern and resource book section. So thank you all for joining me as I nerd out over knitting books today. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. That really helps more people see the podcast and get it out there. I think I will end today by taking everybody outside. Let's go see how my garden is doing, especially the roses because they have finally bloomed. I'll see you all next month. Bye.